Every level of yokai and what happens if you encounter them explained. Level 1. House Spirit Children. We begin our journey through the 7 levels with perhaps the only supernatural being you'd actually want living in your house. Meet the Zashiki-warashi, the guest room child who's basically the opposite of a poltergeist. Zashiki-warashi appear as children somewhere between 3 and 15 years old, with rosy red cheeks that make them look perpetually embarrassed, as if they've just been caught sneaking cookies before dinner. The boys dress in miniature warrior costumes, adorable little samurai protecting your hallways, while the girls wear beautifully patterned kimonos. These house spirits hail from the Iwate prefecture in northern Japan, where harsh winters and isolated mountain communities created some of Japan's most haunting folklore. They were immortalized in the legendary Tono Monogatari, a collection of many Japanese tales and myths. According to these tales, families blessed with a Zashiki-warashi would experience prosperity, good harvests. Basically, they would get rich. But here's the catch. If your Zashiki-warashi leaves, you lose everything you gained. Now, the origins of Zashiki-warashi venture into darker territory, revealing the shadows beneath Japan's folkloric charm. One theory suggests they're the spirits of children who died prematurely or tragically, choosing particular homes to inhabit as their eternal playground. But there's a more unsettling possibility rooted in the harsh realities of feudal Japan. In poor regions of northern Japan, families sometimes practiced usugoro, infanticide by crushing unwanted children under heavy stone mortars because they didn't have enough to eat. These children would be buried beneath the dirt floors or kitchen, and folklore scholars suggest that Zashiki-warashi might be the spirits of these sacrificed children, forever wandering the homes where they were denied life. So what happens if you encounter a Zashiki-warashi? First, congratulations, you're about to get rich. These playful spirits perform harmless pranks like rearranging objects, opening doors mysteriously, and leaving tiny ashen footprints across your floors. They're notoriously shy and elusive, visible only to family members or children, never to outsiders. Some legends distinguish between white Zashiki-warashi, which bring good fortune, and red ones dressed entirely in crimson holding red buckets, which signal the spirit is about to leave, meaning bad stuff will start to happen. Level 2. Allow me to introduce the Tofu-kozo, or tofu boy. This is a child ghost whose entire supernatural existence revolves around delivering tofu. Tofu-kozo appears as a child dressed in humble servant's clothing, typically wearing an oversized, wide-brimmed straw hat that shadows most of their face. In their small hands, they carry a wooden tray bearing blocks of tofu, wandering through darkened streets and lonely alleyways during twilight hours. Their appearance is innocent and unassuming, more cute than terrifying, more confused than menacing. They have this perpetually shy demeanor, as if they're not entirely sure why they're delivering tofu to the spirit realm, but figure someone's got to do it. The origins of Tofu-kozo trace back to the Edo period, when tofu became a dietary staple in Japan, and delivery boys were common sights in urban neighborhoods. These young servants would rush through streets balancing trays of fresh tofu, calling out to customers in sing-song voices. This yokai likely emerged from the collective imagination of Edo-era city dwellers, transforming the mundane sight of tofu delivery into something supernatural. Some scholars suggest they represent the spirits of young tofu delivery boys who died while working, children forced into labor who perished from accidents, illness, or exhaustion, now forever condemned to continue their deliveries in the afterlife. But here's where Tofu-kozo gets its bad reputation. While they're generally harmless, they occasionally offer their tofu to unsuspecting humans wandering at night. Accept it, and you might discover the tofu is moldy, rotten, or crawling with supernatural decay. It's something like a prank from a child who doesn't fully understand the consequences. Some legends say eating Tofu-kozo's offering will cause mild illness or temporary bad luck. Nothing catastrophic, just inconvenient. In other words, it's food poisoning from the spirit realm, unpleasant but survivable. They appear in contemporary media as cute, bumbling spirits rather than frightening entities. This evolution reflects changing attitudes toward yokai, from fearsome supernatural threats to cultural treasures worth preserving and even cherishing. So what happens if you encounter a Tofu-kozo? First, don't panic. You're not in mortal danger. This isn't a spirit that will drag you into the underworld or steal your soul. At worst, you'll get a stomachache. The traditional response is polite refusal. Bow respectfully, decline the offering, and the Tofu-kozo will typically bow back and shuffle away into the darkness, continuing their eternal delivery route. Welcome to Level 3, the Kappa. This creature might teach you ancient medical techniques one day and try to drown you the next. Kappa are roughly the size of a 6 to 10-year-old child, but that's where any resemblance to cute ends. Greenish-yellow skin that glistens with perpetual slime, a turtle shell strapped to their back like nature's body armor, webbed hands and feet perfect for aquatic ambushes, and an ape-like face with a distinctive beaked mouth. But here's their most bizarre feature, the defining characteristic that makes Kappa uniquely vulnerable. Atop their heads sits a shallow, dish-like depression filled with water. This isn't just a quirky hairstyle choice. That water is their life force, the source of all their supernatural strength. Spill it, and they become powerless as a beached fish. Long, stringy hair hangs around this bald depression, and their entire body smells distinctly fishy and gamey, like a river that's seen better days. These amphibious tricksters have haunted Japan's rivers, ponds, and waterways for centuries, appearing in folklore from every region with slightly different characteristics. Some yellow-blue, others red, but all equally obsessed with water. Unlike many yokai born from tragedy or supernatural circumstances, Kappa seem to be elemental creatures, spirits of the water itself. Now, Kappa possess this fascinating duality that makes them genuinely unpredictable. On their best behavior, they're remarkably helpful. They taught humans the art of bone setting and shared medicinal knowledge that saved countless lives. They've helped farmers irrigate fields, befriended lonely children who played by riversides, and even pulled drowning people to safety. They're obsessed with honorable conduct, make them promise something, and they're bound by supernatural law to keep their word. This rigid code of honor is their greatest weakness and their most admirable trait. But here's where things get dark. Kappa have this disturbing habit of drowning people, not out of pure malice, but more like aggressive territorial behavior mixed with predatory instinct. They lurk beneath river surfaces, waiting to grab unsuspecting swimmers and drag them down into the depths. And if drowning you wasn't bad enough, they're after something specific: your shirakodama, a mythical ball of soul energy located in your ass. Yeah, Japanese folklore gets weird. They'll extract this through your butt, killing you in the process. So what happens if you meet a Kappa? Your survival depends entirely on understanding their psychology. First, Kappa are absolutely obsessed with politeness and social etiquette. If you bow deeply to a Kappa, their compulsive sense of propriety forces them to bow back, spilling the precious water from their head dish and rendering them powerless. This is the classic Kappa defense. You could also challenge them to a sumo wrestling match or test of skill. Kappa are intensely competitive and proud, and they'll accept almost any challenge. If you win, they're bound by honor to grant you favors or leave you alone. But if you have a cucumber, you might want to try offering them some. They adore cucumbers with an almost comical passion. This is why Kappa maki sushi rolls are named after them. Cucumbers wrapped in rice, an offering to appease the river spirits. Level 4, the Snow Woman. This is beauty as a lethal weapon, winter's most elegant serial killer, and a cautionary tale about judging books by their covers. Yuki-onna appears as a breathtakingly beautiful woman, often towering over 10 feet tall, making her simultaneously alluring and otherworldly. Her skin is inhumanly pale and translucent, like porcelain infused with moonlight, allowing her to blend into snowy landscapes until she's practically invisible. Long, flowing black hair cascades down her back like midnight spilled across fresh snow, creating stark contrast against her ghostly complexion. But it's her lips that truly unsettle, frozen blue, the color of ice and death, as if she's been kissed by the coldest wind imaginable. Her dark, piercing eyes possess an intensity that can strike terror into mortal hearts, despite her ethereal beauty. She wears an elegant white kimono that flows like snowdrift, though some legends describe her as completely nude. The origins of Yuki-onna are as cold and ancient as the mountains themselves. She's classified as Yuki-no-kei, a snow yokai, born from the intersection of natural phenomena and human fear. In Japan's mountainous regions, where winter storms claim lives with brutal regularity, Yuki-onna emerged as the personification of winter's deadly beauty. But here's where Yuki-onna becomes fascinating. She's not uniformly evil. Many tales describe her sparing those who show courage, kindness, or pure hearts. If you demonstrate compassion despite your fear, if you treat her with respect rather than lust or aggression, she might simply vanish into the snow, leaving you alive. So, what happens if you encounter Yuki-onna? Well, your survival odds depend entirely on her mood and your behavior, which is terrifying because there's no consistent rulebook. In her most malevolent form, she appears to travelers lost in blizzards, breathing her icy breath directly into their mouths and freezing them solid from the inside out. She sometimes lures victims by appearing as a woman in distress, holding a baby and begging for help. Take the child, and you'll discover your arms frozen to it, unable to let go as hypothermia claims you. Level 5. Meet Jorogumo. She's a master of disguise, a lethal beauty, and the patron spirit of anyone who's ever been catfished online, centuries before the internet. Jorogumo appears at first as the ideal woman, stunning, mysterious, and the sort of person whose gaze could even turn on a monk. But beneath that beauty lies danger, for Jorogumo is actually a monstrous spider, capable of transforming between human and arachnid form at will. In her true state, she is a giant golden orb weaver spider, sometimes said to be meters wide, with legs that shimmer gold and black, and fangs that gleam with venomous promise. Her origin story has roots in both folk caution and natural science. In Japan, golden orb weaver spiders are common and very beautiful, with their vibrant markings making them impossible to miss. Ancient storytellers watched these spiders trap insects far larger than themselves, immobilized with a patient web and venom, and the image became a metaphor for the seductive dangers of the unknown. Over time, tales arose of these arachnids living to great ages. Their magical powers blossomed, allowing them to transform into alluring young ladies who would lure travelers to their doom. But Jorogumo isn't always portrayed as pure evil. In some tales, she falls in love with her potential prey and spares them, suggesting an almost tragic loneliness beneath her predatory instincts. Still, her gifts, even when given from affection, are usually laced with some form of danger, whether emotional, spiritual, or physical. So what happens if you stumble upon Jorogumo? Well, if you're a lone traveler, you might find yourself drawn to an impossibly beautiful woman sitting by a river. She'll invite you in, offer you warm sake, and gently lull you into a sense of safety. As the sake sets in, you'll grow sleepy, a sleep from which you'll never wake. Once defenseless, Jorogumo reveals her true form, ensnaring you in silk as tough as fate itself, before draining your life, heart, and marrow. Level 6. Meet the Nue, the result of mixing bad ideas into one unsettling creature. It has the head of a monkey, complete with intelligent, malicious eyes. Its body belongs to a tanuki, that plump Japanese raccoon dog. Its legs are pure tiger, and crowning this horror is a serpent for a tail, writhing independently like it has its own murderous agenda. Some regional variations swap out parts, cat head here, foxtail there, or chicken torso for good measure. But the core concept remains. Nu is a monster, stitched together from nightmares. But it's not just the appearance that unsettles. The Nu makes a sound that freezes blood in veins. A chilling cry that resembles the scaly thrush, a nocturnal bird whose call echoes through dark forests. The creature's name literally translates to night bird in kanji, because this is strictly a nocturnal predator, emerging only when darkness provides cover. The most famous Nui legend comes from the Heian period, around 1153 AD, when Emperor Konoe fell mysteriously ill. Every night, a dark cloud appeared over the imperial palace, and the emperor's health deteriorated rapidly, racked with nightmares, fever, and unexplained terror. Priests tried exorcisms, doctors prescribed remedies. Nothing worked. Finally, the famous samurai Minamoto no Yorimasa was summoned. When the ominous black cloud materialized, Yorimasa fired a single arrow into its depths, and the Nue tumbled from the sky, mortally wounded. But here's the truly terrifying part. Even in death, the Nue brought misfortune. Its corpse was placed in a boat and sent down the river to be disposed of. But wherever the boat drifted, communities reported crop failures, illness, and bad luck. So the Nue wasn't just a monster, it was also a curse. So what happens if you encounter a Nue? Honestly, you probably won't survive long enough to tell the tale. Unlike previous yokai on our list that can be reasoned with, bargained with, or appeased through proper etiquette, the Nue doesn't negotiate. It doesn't want your cucumber. Your best defense is distance and the speed of your legs moving towards the opposite direction. Welcome to Level 7. Meet Shuten-doji, the Oni King, the first among the 3 most evil yokai of Japan. Shuten-doji is an Oni, Japanese demons that represent the absolute pinnacle of yokai danger. But calling him just an Oni is like calling a hurricane some wind. He's massive, standing well over 10 feet tall with bulging muscles that suggest he could snap a horse in half without breaking a sweat. And the name Shuten-doji literally translates to little drunkard, which would be almost cute if it weren't attached to a demon king who got his nickname from his legendary alcohol consumption before slaughtering entire villages. He wielded enormous iron kanabo clubs, spiked maces that could crush armor. He established his fortress on Mount Oi, northwest of Kyoto, gathering an army of Oni and demons who terrorized the Heian capital throughout the 10th and 11th centuries. He kidnapped nobles' daughters, devoured humans, and drank their blood like wine. In short, he terrorized Japan's political heart with such effectiveness that the imperial court lived in constant fear. His physical strength is said to be the greatest among all yokai. A single swing from his weapons could level buildings, and his presence alone made warriors flee in terror. Eventually, the legendary warrior Minamoto no Yorimitsu, also known as Raiko, was tasked with eliminating this threat. But here's the crucial detail. Even Yorimitsu, wielding the mythical demon-slaying blade Dojigiri Yasutsuna and leading an elite squad of warriors, couldn't defeat Shuten-doji through conventional means. The gods themselves had to intervene, providing poisoned sake called Shinbenki-doku Shu, divine demon poisoning alcohol. Only by getting Shuten-doji drunk on this divine poison could Yorimitsu's forces even approach him without being slaughtered instantly. Even poisoned and weakened, the battle was legendary, and Shuten-doji's severed head reportedly continued speaking, cursing his killers even in death. So what happens if you encounter Shuten-doji? You're cooked. There's no clever trick here, no politeness strategy, no cucumber offering. This is a being whose physical power surpasses mortal comprehension, who commands demon armies, and who views humans as livestock. This is where our journey ends, from blessing to apocalypse, from the fortune-bringing child spirit to the demon king. If you love Japanese mythology and bedtime stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.